All right. Let's go. It's another episode of Tuesdays with Audie. And of course, I am your host, Audie. Today is Tuesday, 27th of October, 2020. It is currently sometime between 9 and 10 a.m. I don't know, losing track of days and time. But let's get into it. So after making the decision in regards to not accepting the offer from the potential new employer, hanging up the phone and saying everything I needed to say afterwards, I just laid in the bed and was like, what in the hell did I just do? In terms of that realization of, making that statement on the phone and then having to sit there and really think and ponder on what it is I just did. I was there just beating up myself mentally in regards to what was happening. So after for a few minutes of doing so, I said, you know what, let me just go for a walk. And I just decided to go for a walk. Since it was Tuesday, I went on the walk, and while on the walk, I decided, let me just do what I usually would do in terms of if it's on a Tuesday or Monday, is that I would do my monologue entry. So I did my own monologue entry for that day. It was about almost half an hour in terms of how long it was. I remember highlighting some key things in terms of the monologue, where it was in regards to looking at the relationships and relationships that were built, and not just with the teachers but with the support staff and the custodial staff, and those conversations and those insight that they would share, and taking the time out to talk with them. I remember being appreciative of the opportunity that was given to me, and allowing me to work at the institution for the year, for me to learn and grow and be able to kind of immerse myself into something that I really enjoy. And I would say that, in regards to that year of being passionate about what I was doing, kind of, fell in love with it for that short time. And, once I was done with the monologue entry, I just went home, I showered, and I went to bed. And so here comes Wednesday. Wednesday is the hump day. You gotta get over it. But Tuesday was like the hump day for me. So Wednesday, I woke up. I felt as though that sleep that I had on Tuesday night going into Wednesday, that was the best sleep I had for years. I the imagery in terms of a butterfly coming out of its cocoon was how I felt that day. So I have a Fitbit, and usually a Fitbit will record your sleep score in terms of the night in terms of your sleep. So it pretty much just judges based on the cycles of your sleep, your REM, your deep sleep, and your light sleep. And I got a score of 89. I never get a score above an 83. And that night I had an 89. I was like, oh my gosh, this is have to be perfect. So went and take a shower, had breakfast, and decided I would just go ahead and do something for me. So I went to pick up my passport. I got that sorted out from downtown Miami, and then I was like, you know what? Let me just go to the mall because I needed to get some stuff for a trip that I was going to take to Jamaica, and if my documents came in time. So I was like, you know what? Instead of wasting the day, let me just go ahead and get those stuff. So I went to the store, to the Dolphin Mall, to go ahead to the store for me to buy some stuff. Whilst I was looking around, trying to figure out what to get, then this was around 10 or 11 o'clock. I got a call, and I felt my phone vibrating in my pocket. So I was like, oh, who it is that could potentially be calling me at this time? And you wouldn't believe who it was calling me while I was out doing some self-care. So shopping is one of those things in terms of what we do after a major loss or breakup or something along those lines. We try to do some self-care to take our mind out of the situation. But whilst I was engaging myself in the self-care, I got a call from the principal of the school. And at first I was hesitant to answer the call because I was like, why are they calling me? It's like they already told me what their decision is gonna be. But thinking about what my coworker told me the day before in terms of that they may call me, so I was like, you know what? Let me just answer this call and see what this call is about. Answer the call. He said, he have these amount of people in terms of administration in the room, and he has me on speaker. And he's like, well, we wanted to make you an offer in terms of what it is that you spoke about on Tuesday. And I was like, huh, okay, let me hear. So then he went ahead and said, okay, well, these are the people here. So here it is that what we are offering. We are offering you the same pay. Nothing is going to change with it. In addition to that, we are going to make the accommodation for you to work from home whilst the kids are not in school. And I was like, until when? And he's like, until they are mandated to come back to school. I was like, okay, well, that sounds nice, but the pay is still a concern. After me giving up this massive pay, pay still seemed to be a concern after all of this. So he said, okay, well, I said, okay, well, I appreciate the offer, but I'm gonna need a few moments to think about it before I can actually go ahead and make a decision. And then, he said, okay, well, take the time and let me know when you would be able to. I said, okay, well, by 1 or 2 o'clock, I'll have a decision. I'll call you guys back and let you all know. And so after I hung up the phone, I went into this whole entire this whole argument with myself about why is it I shouldn't take it, why that I should take it, and what's not. And then it's like after sitting down and going through the day and still feeling as though I wasn't even interested in shopping anymore. I was like, screw this, I ain't even feel like shopping. So I was like, okay, well, let me just get some random stuff and just go. So I went, got something to eat, and just try not to get my mind off of making this decision. And so fast forward to Thursday, wake up Thursday morning, saying, okay, well, I'm probably gonna go. I lied. Let's take a step back. Not fast forward to Thursday morning yet. So before the end of Wednesday, before I could actually go in, I said, well, I sent a message to the principal and I said, in terms of my worth to the institution and what it is I bring, I know that I don't have the experience. I admitted to my faults in terms of what I can't do. I know I don't have the experience. I know I don't do well in terms of communication through email, and there are still some issues in some terms of what I can improve on. But the things that I do bring, it's like you cannot find them in any and every person for them to be able to kind of do what I do, whether it's being the teaching aspect of it, in addition to fostering those relationships with the parents and the students to keep them engaged and interested and actually want to be excited to come. And he was like, yeah, I understand you, but it is what it is. This is the only thing we can make. So we go on to Wednesday. Wednesday morning, thinking about, what is I'm going to say in terms of going to the meeting after telling them I cannot make a decision on that day because I will need until the morning. He said, well, okay, well, come in on Thursday and then we can actually come into the office and discuss this. So I went into after beat myself up that morning saying, okay, I don't know if I want to do this or not. I still went in and, I went into the office and I sat in the CM chair before I got fired. I sat in that chair again. And so the first time there was 2 people in the office, this time there was 3. So it's 3v1, first time it's 2v1, and they still end up winning, right? So now I have an additional person to actually compete with. And so they came in, they said, okay, what is your decision? I was like, well, before I make my decision, here are a few things I want to get off my mind in regards to certain things that have transpired. So I told them what I wanted to say. And then in the middle of me trying to get the things off my mind, they injected and interrupted me and said, well, based on your immigration documents, it's like you need to be working here. And then I was like, and I just sat back. I sat back and I listened to what they had to say. They say in terms of these things, it's like you need to work here. So it's like we don't want to see you get deported and leave the country because you don't have a job. It's like we want what's best for you, Dr. B. And then I'm sitting there, I'm like, now these people feel as though they're doing me a favor. And I'm like, should I really go in and tell these people that they're not really doing me a favor at this point? But I was like, you know what? Let them have their win. Let them think that they have their win instead of me interjecting and making things less appealing than what it is right now. So after they said what they had to say, I said, they asked me a question and I said, okay, well, they asked me a question in terms of where my commitment was. I said, I told you guys before you fired me, I wanted to be here, but you all didn't want to believe me. And I told them, well, when I left there, I had an offer for me to accept a position that was better paying than this, but I rejected it. And it was like, you rejected a better paying offer? I was like, yes, I did. Because I told you guys I wanted to be here, but clearly you all had other motives in terms of thinking that I had something else in line for me to leave. That's why I was being so hard in terms of wanting to get the compensation for what I was doing. And it's like, and it's just like the air was just sucked out of the room. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna sign this contract. I'm gonna accept this contract. I'm gonna take it, and I'm gonna call it a day. But then I do appreciate the fact you all are letting me work from home during these particular times. And it's like, well, we don't want you to sign this contract out of disgust or out of malintention. I'm like, no, there's no malintention here. It's like I'm doing this from the goodness of me wanting to be here. I don't know if you guys are just doing this. I wanted to say, I don't know whether or not you guys are doing this just so that you guys can cover your asses. But, at the end of the day, this is what it is that they seem as though they were doing because they didn't want to look as though they were the bad guys in this entire situation. So they came in and made me an offer to kind of seem more appealing. But throughout that conversation, they told me that, okay, well, this is all we can offer you because, we already have allocated funding in regards to the year, and this is what we've allocated in terms of salaries for teachers and every other personnel. I was like, okay, well, bet. I signed the contract, and I took my copy, I gave them their copy, and I left the office. And the one thing after I left the office, which was kind of funny after all of this transpired in the office, I was walking through the corridor and one of the coworkers saw me. He's like, Dr. B, you're back. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I heard you quit. I was like, ha, that's what you hear? And I just walked away. And it was funny that after all of this transpired and they fired me, it's like the narrative around the school was that I quit. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like, you can't win. You can't win for winning, and you definitely can lose even though you try to win, and you definitely gonna lose if you lose. So there's no winning for you at the end of the day. And it was just that funny moment of interaction that I had. We might all look at the story and be like, yeah, Goliath, David and Goliath, David ended up beating Goliath. But no, it's not the way it works out. It's not the way. But since I promised you guys 3 episodes, I'm gonna have to stop here because there's a whole entire month of me just learning about certain things and seeing things from a different light that opened my eyes to so much that I missed my first year, that in 1 month time it felt as though the education I learned in 1 year I learned in 1 month. And I was like, God damn. And like I said, I'm gonna have to stop here. This brings us to the end of another episode of Juices with Audie. And it was a good journey in terms of telling this story. There are so many details that I did not put in because it's just not in the place for me to do so. But this is just a story in terms of your values, pretty much. Standing up for yourself. Being courageous enough to accept what it is that you believe in, no matter the consequences. Because for me, it was that aspect of it. It was a failure in my regards in terms of not necessarily looking at alternatives in terms of what I could do, and then just letting things happen the way they did. And thinking of that is that the value that I set for myself is like, I think about 7 or 8 years ago, I said, there is nothing anybody can ever offer me in this life that I'm going to trade my health for, because my health, I can never shortcut that. And when I made that decision, I decided to change my diet. I started eating better, even though the resources wasn't at home for me to do so. In terms of when I made that change, it's like I tried to find little incentives and little ways for me to implement that promise I made to myself 8 or so years ago, that I will never, ever put my health at risk for anything in this life. And it was, I don't know if it's inspirational, if it's just me being stupid, if it's me being just arrogant and ignorant and egotistical, but that was a promise that I made to myself in terms of my health. And it's like when I made that promise, it's like I was in a position where I didn't have any money, but I still found ways of trying to compensate and making those tough decisions for me to eat better, for me to try to improve on my health, in order for me to be able to kind of function the way I felt as though I should be able to function. And for me to go ahead and accept money, for me to put myself at a risk for something I didn't understand, it's like the promise that I made to, what it was, like 22, 23-year-old Audie back then, or 21-year-old Audie back then, it's like 30 or 29-year-old Audie was like, boy, it's like you don't remember what you said back then, but, this is what you promised yourself. So, you gotta, in some way, somehow, this is where you are right now with all of these offers. So what is it that you're gonna do in order for you to stay committed to this promise that you made to yourself in that time? And yes, that is it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for following through and watching as this, this saga unfold into what it is. And this sounds like a David and Goliath story where David minus the win, but I must tell you, there's way more to the story. But like all movies end, we have to end on a happy ending. So Dr. B, live happily ever after. The end. Thank you guys. Enjoy. Have fun. I will see you guys next week, Tuesday. So with that said, like, comment, share, subscribe, and continue to tune in for more as we go into what this channel is really about, which is just talking about conversations about life and different topics as it relates to it. So with that said, peace, love, and enjoyment. Deuces, I'm outie. Until next time. Ha!